All right, so November 21st is going to be a very special day. We are having a race for the third year in a row called the Mountain Mama Farms Ultra. You can choose a 4 or an 8-hour time frame to run as many miles as you can possibly run within that allotted amount of time. It's at a good friend of ours' private farm. It's a really cool event with awesome people, a lot of fun stuff going on, even just outside of the running. Super good fellowship, food. There's stuff for the kids, you name it. It's a good day to come out and just enjoy life and be encouraged by the people around you, and maybe push and, set some new PRs for yourself and experience some new levels of difficulty. So you guys, there will be a description or a link to register for Mountain Mama Farms, this race, in the description of this episode. If you guys want to come out and enjoy the experience with us, go sign up, and we look forward to spending time with you out there. All right, Jason Wahler, welcome to the podcast, brother. And I'm so fired up to have you on the show today because you have, at least in my mind, an amazing story. And at this point in your life, it seems like you're on fire for the Lord, man. You have a really clear mission for your life and what you're trying to accomplish and the people that you're trying to help. And you are so openly sharing your testimony, your story. You've just lived your life for everyone to see, the good parts, the bad parts, all the way through. And that's really commendable, brother. A lot of the things that you have experienced and a lot of the things that you are really leaning into now and making an impact in are things that are very close to my heart, because my wife went through the whole deal with addiction and OCD, and this was while I was active duty, and I know the power of that disease. By the way, we probably ought to, when people hear us call addiction a disease, that bothers them.
Yeah.
It really does. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that people often bring up, and they think that it's a choice. But when you look at addiction and it as a disease, it is primary, it is chronic, it is progressive, and it is fatal if it's untreated. And I think when you look at this, I think one of the best explanations I've ever heard around addiction and it being like, what is addiction and it being a disease, it's the fact that you're willing to give up everything for one thing as opposed to giving up one thing to have everything.
It's one of the most powerful forces I've ever witnessed on earth.
Yeah.
And I think this is has to be such a pertinent conversation to even our viewers, because it is so prevalent in today's society. I don't really know anyone who hasn't in some way, shape, or form been affected by the disease of addiction. In terms of extended family members, people who are close to them, spouses, children, whatever, I think it's so prevalent now, like most everyone has been impacted in some way, shape, or form by it.
Well, Chad, I mean, the leading cause of death in America for 50-year-old individuals and younger is related to substance abuse.
No kidding, man.
Yeah. You know what the average age of first-time use is in the United States?
I'm going to guess 13.
11 and a half. And so if that's the average, think about how many people are using before that. So it's obviously creeping down younger and younger. And it's alarming when you really look at this. I mean, how this is, and to your point, yes, it is. It's impacting. I think every single person's been directly impacted in some way, shape, or form, whether it's extended family or a friend. But I mean, and it's been a steady incline. If you look at overdoses, you look at suicide. I mean, because mental health obviously plays a part in this as well. I mean, it's very rare that somebody that has addiction doesn't have a co-occurring disorder now. And so, I mean, a lot of this kind of comes into play. And then you take all these other things that are new to society over the last decade or so. I mean, when it comes to social media, and now we're in this place with AI, it's going to be really, really alarming to kind of see where a lot of this goes. And I think we don't even have a full control on it when it comes to social and the impacts that social media and different outlets have. Again, there's there's amazing assets and tools that are associated with it. But also when you look at now, we haven't had a control on that. And even when the owners and the creators behind those don't even let their kids utilize those platforms, that's one thing to be, to be alarmed by and to be questioning. But also now we have AI, again, another amazing tool. But again, as we haven't even had a full consensus or a wrap on what it comes down to social media or, those types of technologies. And now we're implementing something that is, I don't know, 10 times more powerful. So I think it's going to be very alarming to see kind of where a lot of this stuff goes. And I look at it from a very common sense perspective. Look, I had a lot of people that were a lot smarter than me around. I have a lot of lived experience is kind of what I lean into, but there's the longest living study at Harvard, and that's around happiness. You know what that is? It's human connection. And so it's been over, 80, 90 years of a study that's gone on. And what are we doing today? We're taking human connection out of everything that it is that we do. And so you wonder why suicide all-time high, addiction, overdoses all-time high. And so I can't help to really look at that as a part of the problem, but also a part of the solution, right? And I mean, like we were talking about before we got here, we moved to the South and specifically in Tennessee to try to mitigate and combat some of those things that we're addressing right now, just even with our kids. And we're seeing the benefits of that move and setting those parameters and those boundaries into place with our children. Again, we have a long ways to go. My kids are, 9, 5, and 1. But as I'm hyper aware of those things, and my kids are pre-genetically disposed to this, I'm Cherokee, German, and Irish. I should have had a stamp on the forehead when I came out of the womb that said, hey, this guy shouldn't have a damn thing. And there's a long lineage of substance abuse in my family. Half my family struggles with some form of mental health or addiction. So again, going down a rabbit hole and all that, but I think there's so much, and addiction is it's cunning, it's baffling, it's powerful, man. And it's a disease of denial. It's the only disease that tells you don't have a disease. And it's a slow way of suicide, dude.
I gotta give an intro for you real quick. Because we jumped right into this, which is what I wanted to do. For you guys that are listening, just to let you know who Jason is, a little brief intro for him. Jason Wahler is a passionate advocate for addiction, education, and prevention, and a well-known TV personality, host, actor, and philanthropist who has appeared on popular shows like MTV's Laguna Beach, The Hills, Celebrity Rap Superstar.
Oh, yeah, man.
And The Hills' New Beginnings. After publicly battling addiction for years, he appeared on Dr. Drew's Celebrity Rehab and began a new life in recovery. Shortly thereafter, the Network produced a true Hollywood story episode featuring Jason's remarkable transformation and showcasing his dedication to recovery and his mission as a recovery advocate. So that's just a short intro to who Jason is. Dude, you've done a lot of stuff and you've been through it, man. Arrested multiple times. You have struggled through recovery, multiple rehab facilities. I read somewhere about you talking about your relapse, and like you have been through it, dude. The question spinning off the conversation we were just having in the direction we were going, is there, in your experience, a spiritual component to this disease of addiction? Is there? Is it there? And how do you put your finger on it? How do you describe it? Or is it not? Is that not a thing?
For me, absolutely, there is a spiritual component to it. And I mean, for me, I've always, I never had a problem with my relationship with God. And so it was never hard for me to accept and absorb that. But, believing in a power greater than myself to restore me to sanity is a huge part of this process. And for me, that's my Lord Jesus Christ was a big part of that process. And look, I mean, beyond having to have that acceptance around it, man, like as you'd stated, I have gone through so many different trials and tribulations. And it's funny, I kind of came up with like a summarization of this. I think by the age of 23, I went to 13 different treatment centers. I was arrested almost a dozen times. My disease took me not only to contemplation, but attempting suicide. I mean, and there's a lot more that goes into that. But man, there was a man, not being me, man above, that was looking over all this. I mean, and again, a lot of people that struggle with addiction is, we're miracles to be here. That's for sure. But I mean, everything that I went through and that I experienced, I firmly believe that God was looking out for me this whole time, because I think your greatest deficits become your greatest assets. And the fact that I can sit here across from you today and be able to share what my life was like, what it was, and what I went through and what it's like today, there's nothing short of a miracle, dude. There is nothing short of it. I mean, especially when you get to the place when you want to take your own life and not contemplate, but you attempt, and how that even, there was a saving grace to that, about how he showed up in that. And the fact that I'm here is again, it's remarkable, and there's nothing short of a miracle from that. And so, yes, for me, a big part of my recovery consists of a relationship with a higher power. And that for me is Jesus.
Thank you, brother. I kind of want to start at the beginning, because as we can kind of chronologically go through your story and learn from you, but you grew up in Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
And I heard, which seems like a beautiful, amazing place to grow up. You did the whole TV thing, and that was pre-social media.
Correct.
So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, TV now is not as big of a deal as it was back. This was the early 2000s.
Correct.
So at a young age, man, like, pretty much you become the only version of a celebrity that there was back then. I mean, you had to be on TV in some way, shape, or form to kind of gain that status. Even politicians back then didn't have that celebrity status like they have today. It's really weird how things have changed. But it seems like, man, you had so much. You had so much opportunity. You had so much stuff. You had so much... I don't know, like, you were in the spotlight. My wife knew who you were. I was like, Jason Wahler's coming on the podcast. She was like, no way. I used to watch him on Laguna Beach. And so it was a big deal. But one of the things I've heard you talk about, I guess prior to the struggles that you had with addiction, was OCD.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I really want to have a conversation about OCD on the front end, because, to be honest with you, I believe there's probably a bunch of people out here in the world, even listening to this podcast, that are suffering greatly from OCD, and they don't even know it. And they're going to counselors, and they're going to therapists, and even these therapists are misdiagnosing them and sending them spiraling even deeper into OCD, just based off of the advice that they're giving as therapists and counselors. I've watched my wife struggle with OCD, and it will take you down.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk about, or tell us, that part of your story and what that was like, and even how you've worked through that.
Yeah. No, I'd be happy to, and I appreciate your transparency and vulnerability just around your wife. And I think it's so important to talk about, because that's really where, after all these years, 20 plus years later, and having the knowledge and the wherewithal that I do, I can see where everything's started to stem from. Not only the pre-genetic disposition that was associated with me struggling with addiction and having that part, but also the OCD. And so at 12 or 13 years old is when this onset started to come on, and my OCD related to germs and hand washing. And so, I mean, at 12 or 13 years old, imagine in the 90s, washing your hands 30 times a day, to the point where you'd literally hold your hands out and you'd make a fist and they'd crack and they'd just start bleeding. And so, that's kind of the behind the scenes, right? But on the outside, I was an athletic kid, was part of the popular group, was, like I said, good at sports and different things. So I had this identity on the outside that people perceived me as, and that's something that I leaned into. And it was almost like I was living a double life as a 12 or 13-year-old kid, because nobody knew the behind the scenes of the OCD and the hand washing, besides my family. And my friends only knew me as this other guy, but it was bizarre because I'd go out and go to school, go, play baseball, go surf, go skate, go snowboard, do these things. And, those were kinds of pieces of my identity. But as soon as those things were over, I'd come home and, mom and dad, can you pull out the neoprene gloves and put Neosporin in them? My hands are starting to bleed again. And obviously they knew, there was something going on. I had a very my parents are amazing, man. They're what a testament. They just celebrated 54 years of marriage last week, and a huge reason of why I am where I'm at today. And they never gave up on me. It's a whole nother story. But they did everything they possibly could to support me. I saw every psychiatrist, every therapist under the sun. And again, in the 90s, it was like, obviously you knew something was wrong. You could see that I was washing my hands, but as a kid, I didn't know how to communicate this. My parents didn't know what the heck was going on. And I was put on medication and it helped mitigate the symptoms, but I never dealt with the underlying issues. And, that's kind of where it stopped. I mean, I'd go in for, routine checkups and stuff for therapeutic appointments. And, but it wasn't to maybe a year and a half after that, I find alcohol, and, the rest is history. I'm like, well, I found alcohol, who needs medication? Right. And so
there's a correlation between OCD and addiction. Do you see them go hand in hand a lot? Like, because was the alcohol a way for you to like stop the medication and basically medicate yourself in order to kind of help with the OCD symptoms?
So the medication, like I said, it helped mitigate the symptoms, but it never dealt with the underlying issues that were there. So there were still a lot of things that I was dealing with, even though there was quieting of the mind from the medication. Alcohol took it to a whole nother level. So yes, in essence, was I like self-medicating? Yeah. I mean, even beyond what the medication was doing, because it didn't fulfill the void that I was looking for, if you will. And at that point, like, again, knowing what I know today and doing the years and years of therapy that I have and seeing specialists around this, like, there's a lot of different things that could have been done. And again, I think the people did the best that they possibly could in the 90s when I was dealing with this, right? I mean, maybe I'm wrong again, but I feel like I saw really educated and good people that were there, but never walked through, and even trying to give them a history of where things stem from, or just understanding. It's like, I was only able to share as much as I could at that age. I mean, I think, again, looking back at when it was going through puberty. I mean, there's only so much that you're going to be open and that you're going to share that you're going through. So from that standpoint, it was, tried the best to communicate that with the therapist. And I think, again, as their answer was medication, it did help, it mitigated the hand washing, but the self-worth, the identity, I mean, there was still this internal battle that was going on. And again, as I think you could also coincide that the OCD also had implemented depression. Again, as the self-worth piece was like, I would think I'm a weirdo, you know what I mean? Even though on the outside there was validation and stuff from people being like, dude, like, he's good at this, or he's good at that, or he's dating that chick, or whatever it is. And again, I'd externally go for validation in those areas, but it, again, is I wasn't washing my hands 30 times a day anymore, but I was still dealing with all those other underlying issues, right? So does that make sense?
It does.
It's very complex and multifaceted. And again, by no means am I a doctor. I'm just sharing my personal experience with it. And that's where I think when I found alcohol, I'm like, okay, now the hand washing is going away through the medication. The alcohol now is quieting the other thoughts that I'm having from depressive, state of mind, self-worth, purpose, direction of life in general. And so I think that's where those two kind of came hand in hand. And so ultimately what that did is I started to suppress the OCD. Now I'm starting to turn on and trigger a full-blown fledged alcohol addiction.
I just see the similarities between your testimony and your story and the story that I've walked through my wife with my wife. And it's the similarities are astounding. And like, what is going on? The OCD thing, I guess, first of all, you talk about it's hard to describe it. as a young person. I think as an adult, like when I watched my wife as a full-fledged adult, already been through recovery, clean and sober, and this OCD flare back up, she still, as an adult, can't describe what's happening to her. Like, and this is her story, but she's told it publicly here on the podcast. Like, she even can't describe what on earth is going on here. Like, what's going on with the mind? What have you learned about that?
Well, and I remember when I was 12 or 13, I could tell you, I mean, it was like ingrained into my head. I mean, it was debilitating. I mean, I literally could not function. I mean, I would literally go in, I could even see my bathroom and everything. I'd go in there, wash my hands, turn off the water, turn around, even with my hands still wet, and my mind be like, you didn't wash your hands. I would be in there. Like, if you're a fly on the wall, dude, I'm looking in the sink, seeing if there's bubbles, like trying to identify that that's there. That translated into the shower. I had to wash every body part that I had. I mean, it wasn't just my hand. I mean, it was definitely the hands, because obviously your hands you utilize the most and you're touching everything. But when I was in the shower, I had to, make sure everything was washed from every body, like every single piece had to be covered in soap. Imagine just going through that as like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, like going through that from a mental standpoint, the trauma that I was creating for myself that was happening through this. And, because from the outside, it's like, dude, just don't wash your hands. Like, you're fine. You know what I mean? But the repeated thought process that would go on, I could not, you'd want to let's just go have a conversation in the midst of it. And we'd be talking, I wouldn't hear a word you were saying. And so that's where maybe the outlets of my sports and different things, because when I'd go surf or I'd go skate or I'd play baseball, I would not be, it was a distraction from that process. And so I think it was helpful being athletic in those areas, because I also was yearned for it, because I was getting better and better at surfing, skating, snowboarding, whatever it was that I was doing. And so I naturally was attracted to that. But again, as it also was able to help me continue to suppress what I didn't want, because I wasn't talking about this to people. And what's even more weird is how it came out outside of germs in the form of validation. And if you were to pull a group of my closest friends from middle school, something that I started to do is because I needed reassurance. And again, is it so weird? Because I don't know how, let me just state this statement, and then I'll try to say what I was going to say after, is I would start to ask if I needed to know that we were best friends. I needed validation, that you had my back or whatever that was. And I started to ask hey, we're good friends, right? And he'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, and I would need you to repeat it. My friends, literally, they didn't know what was going on internally, but it was almost the same thing. I needed to know for a fact that the hands were washed. I needed to hear that exactly. And so it was kind of like a running joke between some of the guys that were on the show with me. I mean, and so, but they didn't know that. They just thought, oh, Jason's just, he's just weird about that. You know what I mean? Asking if we're good friends or if we're best friends. And I don't know where that stemmed from. There was nothing even today, there was nothing that created that cultivation where I needed because again, at home, I grew up in a very loving, caring environment. I had siblings who were awesome. There wasn't this traumatic event or something that was associated with I needed to have self-worth. I think it was again ingrained, and I did a lot of that damage myself just by not sharing really what was going on. I didn't know how to the best of my ability. And so I think it started to leak into other areas of my life. And that was even on medication. You know what I mean? I was on medication, and that was still I did that with several people, and I needed to be able to hear that. And it's such a bizarre, I don't do that anymore. You know what I mean? But it's just it's just such a weird thing. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's the real tellings was the hand washing, the communication with friends, the validation, but I was not able to operate. And again, and I'm blurring this, forgive me. It was so many years ago. The medication did help though, in all those areas. It quieted that part of it. And I'm sure again, is it didn't make it 100% go away, but let's say if out of 100%, it made it go away by 85, 90%. So it was a lot, it was manageable. I could actually function. Whereas before, I mean, when it triggered and it came on, I couldn't live, dude. And I've even tried today to get off of my medication several different times, just because, you know, I feel like with all the skill set and the different things I have, and I've come off and I've had to go back on my medication.
Yeah. It is such a powerful thing. And I just want to have this conversation, one, to in some way, like, normalize it for people who are listening, who might be struggling or seeing this pop up in their own life, like, to let you know you're not crazy. Yeah. And there are other people who are dealing with this. I don't know. I look at it from an outside perspective, having never experienced it. And to me, it seems like the OCD is, I describe it, looking from the outside, as like a runaway mind. So people don't tell you, we don't get taught at a young age. Nobody tells us that we're not born with a trained mind.
Yeah.
Like, no human being is born with a trained mind. No matter how good your family is and your situation is and all this stuff, like, you have to have people in your life that are going to bring you up through these different experiences and through this mentorship and through, you know, hands-on teaching and mentorship and leadership to train the human mind.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much that plays into it or not, but I'm so blessed from my military background. I went through this program that taught me how to, like, bring my mind into subjection. I don't know that that is the case for everyone. That's just what it looks like from the outside. And I've watched my wife train her mind through her process of recovery from OCD, which has looked very similar to the process of recovery from drug addiction, to include having to go and be in an inpatient facility to recover from OCD specifically, not even addiction. It's looked very, very similar. And I've watched her do these, she calls them exposures, where she forces her mind to experience the biggest fear that is like running away.
Yeah.
You know, like hers was with sleep. And like, I've watched her, we just had a baby. And I've watched her, like, intentionally, even today, forcefully, like, just engage this sleep deprivation as an exposure. And it's almost like it like hardens her mind against it, or trains her mind against it.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the case for everybody, but man, if one of you guys out there who's listening to this and you think you're crazy because you're experiencing this, you're not crazy.
Correct.
This is way more common.
Yes.
Than you think. And people hide it because people don't understand it, I think. Even the people who are experiencing it don't understand what's happening to them.
Correct. And if you have also heard about pandas,
no,
heard about that, where it's basically a virus from strep throat that actually creates OCD. So there's actually a whole nother, and again, I'm getting more and more versed on this because that's something that I definitely, again, is if you had strep throat, you can have the virus when you get the blood test and stuff like that. But that is something too that they're starting to see. There's more and more information that's out there. And so again, is if you're struggling with OCD, you have the signs or symptoms, you also may want to get a blood test to see if you've had pandas.
So that, I'm glad you shared that with me, because this is something that I've struggled with in my own mind, just viewing it from the outside, is how much of OCD is something that is a result of not having good mentorship and leadership in your life, and your mind just running away because you haven't been led through these rites of passages or these steps that help harden the mind, and how much of it is biological.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Looking at it from the outside, when you try to put logic to it, you think, well, these people who are struggling with this can do this, this, and this and improve. But how much of it, as you're saying, well, here's some evidence that it's actually a biological thing and it has nothing to do with just not having the experiences that you ought to have had as a young person to help really teach you how to control your mind, you know?
Correct. No,
So I think my perspective is not right. I'm interested in it, you know?
No, and I think there's more and more will constantly be revealed, right? And again, just even bringing awareness to it and bringing more discussion around it and allowing more people to get support and help that they need with it. Because I mean, OCD is man, it is debilitating. And as you said, I love that. The running mind I can totally relate to, because I mean, even though I was physically in the moment with a lot of people, mentally I was so far gone. I was in this whole other space. And it was just, it's fascinating to look. I love the fact that you brought up the approaching and calling it out, because again, as my OCD's manifested into some really cool things. I mean, you come to my house, my clothes are color coordinated. I know where every damn paper is. I mean, again, not to a debilitating state, but I'm very organized now. And so I took something that was completely out of control and used it to a benefit of making it in control. But some of this stuff will happen with OCD when I'm reading, or I need to reread something, which is fine, but I will call out the challenge or the fear that I'm facing that's associated with the OCD, and again is not letting it take over my mind, but being like, hey, OCD is talking again, something to suppress and not have to get into it. So it's calling it for what it is. And again, I think the good news, and I think it's important to share, is even though I went through and experienced a lot of those things, my life looks pretty normal today. I mean, again, as I still have moments of OCD and stuff like that, but it is completely manageable. And so there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope that there is a way out of this. And so for me is I kind of am able to be in a place today to be able to laugh at what I was able to go through. I think that's a healing thing. It's not making fun of people that have OCD by any means. It's a serious thing. But for me, is I can look back at the things that I went through and be like, man, that was a gnarly trial and tribulation and stuff that you faced, but also look at how far you've come. And also to see that, I've been able to take something that was so negative in my life and turn it into a positive.
Man, praise the Lord for that, brother. That's just huge encouragement, man.
Yeah.
That's huge encouragement for people listening who this is resonating with them, or they're seeing someone that they love go through this and they don't get it, man. Like,
yeah, there
is a way out of it. And I agree with you 100%, man. I agree with you 100%.
And there's other, again, as I know like Howie Mandel and like they're with that no OCD group and other things. Like there's, again, I'm not advocating for anything, because I like to experience things firsthand, but I do know that there's more therapeutic modalities and different things that are coming out specifically towards that. And they've had that for years, but it's nice to see that there is more education, research, and knowledge that's going into this. And so I want to look at some of the other therapeutic modalities that they've come out with in the last several years too. But it's cool to see that they are putting more out there.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the TV stuff, man.
Yeah.
How old were you when you were on Laguna Beach? You were in the second season, right?
Second season's when I came on. So I was 17 years old. And so I think it's important to bridge the gap from what we just talked about to getting there.
I agree.
So again, is dealing with the OCD, saw a therapist, got medicated, starting to find alcohol, starting to party. So a few years go by. I'm starting to struggle. I mean, the addictions and the progressive state for sure. At that time, I ended up, in good communication with my parents. We're like, hey, it's probably time to evaluate getting some help, beyond to seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist. So I ended up going out to Provo, Utah to a wilderness program back in the day. It's where you literally whittle your own backpack, make a bow drill. And it was actually a pretty cool experience. First time I was able to grow my beard and be out there, but it was a way for that. And we agreed that I'd come back and go to boarding school, in Utah. And again, I was, a pretty good mass manipulator and stuff like that. I was supposed to be gone for about a total of 9 months. I think I was gone for about 90 days at most. I was able to manipulate my parents into being able to have me come back. But during that whole stint, when I was in that process of going to wilderness program and going to boarding school and stuff like that, that's when the first season of Laguna, the show was happening. And so obviously I was made aware of what was happening, and I come back and the show comes out, and it did well. And that's when they started to cast for the second season. And so a lot of the cast that was on the original season, besides just a few, were going off to college. And so they needed some new people. And so some of the original cast brought up my name. And again, you can imagine not only if I was having to go to boarding school and having to go to wilderness programs, what my life looked like and what I was doing. I mean, I was definitely partying and, dating and having fun, at least so I thought. And so when I went and did my interview at the rooftop, the rest was history. They thought I would be a good fit for television and everything that I was going through.
You could bring some good drama in the mix.
So, heavily active in my addiction was I guess good TV.
Good night, man. What was that experience like for you? Like getting thrust into the public eye out of nowhere. Was it good or was it bad? Looking back on it now,
man, there's so much to all of this. Being thrust into the public eye at the time was awesome. But for what I was going through, it was one of the worst things that could happen. I'll never forget the moment. And again, going back, like there was no social media. There's no different, like a commercial aired. And it was playing at the movie theaters. It was before the movies would come on. And just that happening, I remember going to the gas station the next day after that one day that they came out, and my car was like bum rushed with people. And I was like, what? Like, I can get used to this, right? So again, at that time, I think the best way to describe myself is, I had an overinflated ego with an underestimated sense of self-worth.
At 17 years old, I cannot imagine that.
Yeah, but it's having that happen. So again, is now I have all these underlying issues, the OCD, dealing with addiction, and now there's this whole recognition standpoint. So all the things that I really need to be focusing on and addressing totally get pushed to the side. And again, my parents, they did everything they possibly could to help and navigate all this. This was all such new territory for everybody that we were going into this. And so,
did they support you being part of the show?
They, in the beginning, God bless them, man. I actually didn't really want to do the show. It was one of those things where we thought we were too cool. We're like, oh, we're not going to do that. Like just being idiots at 17, 18 years old. And I was actually convinced by a couple good friends and my family that like, it'd be really cool to have your senior year documented. Like there's not many people get this opportunity, and little did they know it was going to become the biggest nightmare of their life. But so they were in support of it. Nobody knew the success that was going to come out of this, right? Like the first season, it was kind of the snowball effect. And then by season 2, I mean, I want to say it was like the number one show on cable. I mean, it just ended up blowing up. And I mean, the rest is history. I mean, at 18 years old, because 17 going into 18, most of your friends are just looking for fake IDs, and we're being paid to party and travel the world. I mean, we were living the dream, dude. It was so falsified. It was something that there was no relatability to it. And I mean, we would travel to so many different states and, go to these clubs and get paid. And I mean, just have the time of our life. And it was like, I mean, we were living the dream. And that just continued because after Laguna and all that happened, then Lauren got offered her spinoff, The Hills, and we were dating at that time. So we went up and started to do that show. And it's just this kind of this constant domino. And there was nothing really, I think during that time it was like the Osbournes was out, The Real World. And then like when The Hills started, I think like The Girls Next Door, which was like with Hugh Hefner and their show. Like I think there was no soft scripted reality shows ever. I mean, this is like Laguna, I think, was kind of the creator of like, you can thank them for like the Housewives and the Kardashians.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was groundbreaking.
It was kind of like the first of its kind. And so, there was, in the moment, yes, it was cool and it was very fulfilling, but in reality, it was just pouring a ton of fuel on the fire of self-destruction.
So are you spiraling?
Oh,
like downward
yes.
Through this whole process?
And it's, and going through all this stuff publicly was the other part. So, I mean, it was, I think the transition from Laguna to The Hills is when it started to become the worst. Was going in and out of treatments, was getting arrested, And again, imagine, I mean, you know, you're literally checking out at the grocery stand and there's no social media, which it's funny. People are like, thank God there was no social media. And we were talking about it and we're laughing. I'm like, it could have been, it could have gone either way, because if there was social media, there's so much information out there that things would have been suppressed, but obviously it would have been a lot more accessible. So I don't know, but I mean, I know not having it, you know, you're just checking out of the grocery store and it's like, you know, in the corner of like a magazine, it's like, you know, Jason Wahler arrested again. I mean, it was just very, you know, you had a lot of public humiliation, you know, thanks to TMZ, and back in the day when like Perez Hilton was around, and, you know, these blogs were like was basically what social media was. And it was just everywhere, you know what I mean? And so you could not escape this. And so, I mean, that obviously continued to add more fuel to the fire, because I mean, there was just so much shame and guilt that was associated with it. I actually came up with an acronym for shame, which is self-hatred against my existence. And so when you're in that shame, you know, I mean, even though, and that's the insanity of addiction and alcoholism, the things that got me to that spot being the drinking and the drugs, I still turn to those expecting a different result. And there was no way out, man. And that's where it just became deeper and deeper and deeper. I mean, I remember Dr. Drew telling me, I think it was during my like lab results at, I think it was 22, 23 years old. I had that alcoholism of like over a 50-year-old. I mean, just with how much I was drinking. And so it scared me to death. You know, I forget what the liver count, I'd have to go back and see what he told me it was. But the good news is obviously I was young and was able to clearly reverse it. But I mean, I was in a deep, dark place, man. And I think kind of to give people perspective and stuff too, and I think it's important because we never touched on up until 12 years old. And I actually went through this with my therapist, is I was a really like happy, outgoing, love life type of kid. And so she kind of used this analogy, which was pretty cool. Is it was kind of like if you look at like a bright light, and since inception to about 12 years old, I was this very bright light. And when I encountered the OCD is when this light started to fade. And then through the television shows, through the depths of addiction, this thing just got darker and darker and darker until that light went away. Because I loved who I was as a kid. I loved life, you know what I mean? And even in the depths of OCD in the beginning stages, it was, you know, it wasn't until it became crippling is when that started to fade. But that light really went completely dark in the depths of everything, and you know, going to jail, and you know, I mean, there was days I'd wake up and be like, what attorneys am I hiring? What jail am I turning myself into? And but that light that went completely dark through God's grace and through, you know, through pure surrender, guidance, and direction. It's almost like if there was what do you call those lights on the wall where you can, the dimmer light, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that light started to turn back on. And today, like I can say, I feel like that light is completely back, but I think it was just a really cool analogy, the way that for me, it was a visual, because in the depths of my disease and my moment of clarity, which really transitioned to me to enter into recovery, it was almost, I use this analogy, like the light came on. And in that moment, there was nothing that was necessarily different. It's almost like I feel like God's presence was there.
Yep.
And so that's, I don't know, I just wanted to share that was something that was really cool that I experienced, because life was great, went super dark, man. And the light's back.
That's so wild, man. That like you can, I guess in a way it's a testament to the power of the disease of addiction, to where you can have everything. Like you can have fame, you can have fortune, you can have, but like this disease it just trumps all of that. It just trumps all of that. It just will continue to spiral downward. I mean, I don't know if people understand like I know I didn't understand the power of it until I walked through it with somebody that I love. You know, it's like there's nothing you can I could give my wife or tell my wife or provide for my wife that was gonna trump this disease of addiction.
Well, you hit the nail on the head right there, though. I mean, at one point in my life, I had everything society says is amazing.
100%, man.
I mean, money, access, notoriety, girls. I mean, whatever you want.
And it was way harder back then, to get those things. Like those things were so much more valuable back then than it's easy now if you know how to leverage social media and YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah. Back
then there was one way, man.
And it didn't matter, man. Yeah.
Was there a time, an experience, a moment where all of this came to a head?
Yeah, like the moment of clarity where it was kind of like the turning point after all of this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was sharing with the light came on moment, and I'll never forget this. So this was basically after everything had transpired. You can imagine how many therapists I've seen, how many psychiatrists, how many treatment centers I've been to, and I was yet again in a therapy office with my mom and my dad, and again, loved them to pieces, man, and just so grateful for them. And it was also it was a really sad moment too, because I remember just in those last few years what I was going through, I remember seeing my parents in that moment. Man, they physically aged about 10 years. I mean, and I'm not joking when I say that. Just again, there's a whole nother story when it comes to enabling and codependency, but they did the best that they could during that process. And my dad was sitting there, and I've never seen him break down besides when his mother's passed, and he's like the patriarch of our family, and he's kind of looked over. He had a tear running down his face in this therapy office, and again, we've been here. There's not like this is some crazy we've been in this spot hundreds of times, right? I mean, literally doing this, and he just looks over though, and he's got a tear running down his face, and he just says, "Mom and I don't know what to do anymore. We're at a complete disarray. I mean, our marriage is suffering. The family is completely lost. And we wait every single night in bed like two planks of wood, waiting for the phone call that you're dead." And that's where, like I said, this light came on. And it's so interesting because I didn't care enough about myself to want to do what I needed to do, but I cared enough and had enough respect for them that they became my motivation. Which is not often what you always hear. You have to hear people say, like, they have to be ready, they have to be willing, especially for people in recovery. I had nothing left. I didn't care if where I was at or whether I lived or I didn't. And they became my motivation. And July 23rd, 2010 is when I went back into treatment. And I count that as the day of when I made that shift. And when that light came on, I was like, I don't care enough about me, but I care enough about you guys that I'll give this one last shot. And that's where everything changed.
Wow. Dang, that's powerful, man. Now, from that point, is that the treatment program that you went into as that was being filmed as part of a show?
No, so I ended up going to Florida. I went into a program. I was out there for 60, 70 days. And I'd gotten the call when I was in treatment that they wanted me to go on celebrity rehab. And so from there, I left that treatment to go into celebrity rehab. So I went in sober to celebrity rehab.
So that sounds like a terrible idea to me, which is why I wanted to get into this part of your testimony, man.
Yep. So I went on there. Really, it was, you have to remember too, is at this moment, I've been off TV for a little bit now, and I kind of left the notion of all the wreckage, and that's kind of what was left with me and my name. And so I really wanted to go back and change the public's negative perspective of the way that they perceived me, because I knew the way the show was shot. I had friends and stuff that had done it before. I knew the format, versus it was very different than what I was traditionally doing. It was really kind of like the real world. They had cameras in the corners, and they had, they'd set up certain things and stuff like that, but it was an opportunity for me to go in there and have full control over what it is that I was going to do and how I was conveyed. Yeah, they could edit things and stuff like that, but it was a risk that I was willing to take. And also some of the people that I went in there, and rest their soul. I mean, Jason, who's no longer with us, and Janice Dickinson, who I still talk to this day, and just some of the people that were in there, I knew that they were going to be the focal points coming off of 20 years of benzos, and just some of the other people that were struggling. They were in it, you know what I mean? And so, yes, it was definitely a gamble, and I don't know that I would do that again, but based on where I was at and what I was doing, I also wanted to connect with Dr. Drew. Because he is a huge part of why I'm where I'm at today as well. I mean, he's been a huge testament and mentor, and he's really a friend now, that helped me navigate a lot of this, because he also understood. Also, imagine going through all that stuff and trying to talk to therapists and psychologists and stuff. They can't relate to what I was trying to explain my life. And yes, they give me the educational stuff that they know around the types of things that I'm experiencing, but I'm a much more real life person. I mean, when it comes to, like, I think sometimes the best experts are the ones with the lived experiences. Personally, I relate to more people like that. And I think there's a sense of connection and a sense of safety when you have that. Yes, it's important to have people that have the proper education and knowledge. But Drew not only had the education, but he also, I think, just with working with so many people, doing Loveline and being just kind of in the media, he just had a different perspective. Him and Bob Forrest were able to really shed a different light. And I mean, going through that, I mean, it was another stepping stone for me, again, as being in there. I mean, there was real treatment. I mean, it wasn't like, it wasn't like cameras went off and it's like, all right, you guys, let's go out to Hollywood. I mean, they really had treatment, and you're in a residential setting. And, but it was interesting. But that was a part of that journey. I almost looked at it as like aftercare. Yeah, it was, televised, and put myself in a potentially a vulnerable situation, just with, exposing myself back into that environment. But, it worked I guess, hopefully to my benefit. I think, I made it out unscathed, I think, kind of like a background prop on that show. I mean, I'd kind of just see me go across corners and stuff while other people are detoxing and going through what it is that they're going through. And
yeah, because you're coming in clean, like you said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I had my moments, that were there, and, but it was, and it just to tie it all together is, well, no, that's kind of basically the gist.
Yeah, man, I just like living a public life is so brutal in so many ways, and the way you were experiencing it, I think, is on a whole another level, like a bigger level than I experience it now as someone who's on social media, again, because TV was so just influential and front and center back then. I just can't imagine making the decision to go and show that part of your recovery process to the world, man. Like, I don't know, that took a lot of courage, for sure. Do you regret any of that TV stuff? Do you wish it would have been different? I mean, what's your perspective on all of that now, being on the other side of it?
No, I wouldn't change a thing. Yes, obviously I wish I would have conducted or dealt with myself differently in many different situations, if you will. But again, it's one of those classical, situations or cases where I wouldn't be at where I'm at today and being able to do what I'm able to do without the support of those shows. And I'm mindful of that. Yeah, I mean, dude, I couldn't do it again. I mean, it was the most hellacious time of my life of going through all those emotions, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. I mean, I was challenged in so many different ways that I would never want to go through it again. And yes, there was a lot of public humiliation, a lot of things that I did that I fully regret. But I also take full ownership and accountability of those things, and have used those and leveraged those things to be, again, like my favorite saying is, like, your greatest deficits can become your greatest assets. And that is literally what I feel like I've done. And again, is even getting closer and getting more in connection with the Lord. Again, as I was at a vulnerable age of 17, 18, going into this stuff that, nobody knew it was going to come out of it. And I know you asked, like, knowing what I know today, would I not do that? But it's also, it's giving me this this opportunity to share and be vocal with all the people that don't have a voice, that struggle with this, to be able to be hopefully a little bit of a voice for them. And even if today it's just like when we're talking, if this just resonates with one person, then that's, to me, is servant work of what the Lord is asking, and then for us to be of service to those other people. And you know, I wouldn't change it. You know, I really wouldn't. And I look at that, and there's, you know, it's funny. I've been asked that question many over the years. You know what I mean? And it's my answer's evolved, if you will. You know what I mean? As I've gotten older and I feel like more mature. But it's really kind of been in the same vein as I wouldn't have, you know, I would have done things differently potentially. But again, is now that I'm sitting here, it's like, you know, I don't know that I would have. Yes, I have a lot of regret of the way I acted in those spots, but I also have a lot of gratitude. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting in front of you, like I told you in the beginning, is a miracle. And how many millions of people have lost their lives to addiction, especially in the context of the settings that I put myself into.
Yeah.
It's a blessing, and I'm grateful for everything I've experienced.
I'm glad that's your answer, man, because it's really hard for people to believe and understand. Like, first of all, to believe, but then to understand the promise that the Almighty God has made to us, his sons and daughters, that he will indeed work all things to the good of those who are called according to his purpose.
Amen.
And like, your testimony is evidence of the truth of that promise. So like, if we serve a God who's going to do that, when we look back on our lives and we look back on just the horrendously stupid stuff that we did, how on earth can you sit here and say, I wouldn't change a bit? It's only because of that promise that God has made to us, his sons and daughters. And he actually does it. Like, that's the only way you can sit right here and say, no, man, yeah, I wish I would have handled myself differently in some of these situations, but I wouldn't take any of it back, because look what it's led me to. By the grace of God, look what it's led me to.
Amen.
I'm glad that's your answer.
And it's nice to be in full acceptance of that today.
Yes.
Because like I said, it was hard going along, you know, because I mean, going through those things, there's a lot of things that were really challenging and that you have regret on. But as you grow through it, and again, this didn't happen overnight, you know what I mean? This took a lot of work and a lot of time to get where I'm at. With
your experience with not only addiction, but with just the pressure and the anxiety and the whatever comes along with living a public life, like, how has this influenced how you are a parent? I'm interested in this because how old are your kids now?
9, 5, and 1.
Okay, so at 9 years old, they're probably already wanting a cell phone. They probably already have this concept of social media, and that's only going to, you know, they're all going to be there. My kid's going to be there one day. And like, how do you navigate that, knowing what you know as a parent, or what's your plan to navigate that?
It's a very, very good question. And going back to what we talked about, the average age of first-time use is 11 and a half years old in the United States. So again, that's the average. So kids are obviously using younger than that. And so I want to do everything that I possibly can to be there and be supportive to my kids, right? And I think when people look back, they're like, what is the one thing that you would have changed, like in your childhood or your upbringing and stuff? And I don't want to sound contradicting at all when I say this, so hear me out though, is I wish that, because my parents were always there for me and understand that. They were very supportive and loving, but I also felt like in the 80s and 90s and stuff, like even though my dad was a person that I could go to, there was also repercussions. I mean, there was a little bit of that intimidation and stuff like that. Yeah, I could go to him, but I also feel like I was going to get in trouble. You know what I mean? And so I look back and I wish I had a place that could have had a more communicative connection at a younger age. And so again, it's a taught thing though. And so at a young age, for my daughter at 3 or 4, I started, and it's part of one of the practices that I do, a part of my recovery thing. We started doing a gratitude list together. So, I mean, in the beginning, she didn't really understand what we were doing. I mean, I'd light a candle. I mean, her favorite thing was just to blow it out, but I'd be like, Delilah, what's grateful today? You know, like I just use one word things. And as we started to grow and somebody much smarter than me, you know, shared as I started doing this, regularly, daily for years. And somebody's like, you should start implementing, you know, questions. And so it's, I do 4 questions every single night with my kids, almost every single night. I'm not perfect with it, but I try to be pretty consistent with it. And it's what was good today? What could you improve upon? What are you grateful for? And what's your goal? And I started doing this with my daughter. My son, who's just turned 5, is now participating in this, and he's starting to catch on more and more. And I think the sister is showing the way for this, but I answer these questions with them at an age appropriate level, but we start to have this connection, this conversation that takes place. And really what I'm trying to do is cultivate a sense of connectivity, vulnerability, relatability, and ultimately a sense of safety for my kids, that they can come to me for everything and anything that it is that they need. And it is amazing. I will tell you, I mean, I could literally bring tears to my eyes. Like a few months ago when my daughter, you know, when she was 8, and she turns 9 in August. So but I just go down the road. So she's still 8, but a few months ago, she sat down with me at 8 years old, and I asked, what could she improve upon? And she brought up the conversation. She goes, Dad, I'm really struggling with my close friend. One of my best friends, actually. Dad, did you ever struggle with your best friend? You know, what was it like? What'd you do when you guys were struggling? And she was having a conversation as if like a 13-year-old was talking to me, or a 14-year-old. And I'm like, dude, this is exactly what I've started to do this for, is for these conversations to start to come up. And the whole goal is, as they get older and when substances or different things come into place, they know they can always come to me. But I'm going to do everything in my power. So that 4 questions is something that I am very, very, adamant on. And I'm seeing the benefits of it now. But also a statistic that I think is very important, if you guys don't know this, that if you do not drink or use by the age of 21, no matter what your pregenetic disposition is, you have a 90% chance of never struggling with addiction. Mm. And so I'm going to do everything in my power to get my kids to that age of 21, to not drink or use. And every year makes a difference. I mean, even if under my roof at 18, that's better than 15. You know what I mean? And so, and it's crazy because I'm already starting to have these conversations with my kids around addiction. And it's funny because my daughter actually brought it up on her own accord, because I get asked often, when do I bring up, you know, how to talk to my children about this and stuff like that. And I think everybody's household's different. Everybody, you know, you really need to, that's a much deeper conversation. But I know for me, it's going to be right around, you know, 9 or 10 is what I was going to bring it up to my kids. But my daughter goes, Dad, why do you have 2 birthdays? And I was like, this is really interesting that she's teeing this up. And so my wife actually caught this on camera. When I gave her the response, and I was able to sit her down and say, you know, Delilah, Daddy, you know how Daddy doesn't drink wine or beer. She's not aloof to that stuff, because other people, you know, have it. And I think people have to understand too, it's important to understand you are actually introducing alcohol, smoking, whatever it may be, just from a visual aspect. So at 2-3 years, they see you with beer, they see you with wine, they're going to start to understand what that is, or at least know the association to that, you know. And I said, you know how Daddy doesn't drink, or, you know, doesn't have wine, doesn't have beer when we go to dinner and stuff like that. Dad has an allergy to it. You know, just like if I was allergic to peanuts, like some of your friends are, or other things that would make them sick. And so I said it at a very calm, collective, receptive, layman's term perspective for an 8-year-old to comprehend. And she ended up writing me a letter just saying how proud she was of me. And so I think it's communicative, and it's all around communication and sharing that. And so I will slowly unravel this and let her know our pregenetic disposition to it. I'll let her know our history around addiction, and I will do everything that I can to educate and empower them to make the best and most informed decisions, knowing that what I went through. And so again, as you asked that question, would I take back everything that I went through? And I think even the bigger piece to that is, man, the knowledge that I have now to be able to share with my kids is absolutely, I mean, there's no price you can put on it. And then on top of that, man, I think and I'm sorry, I've got to give you a little right turn right now, is like the beauty behind this is I'm breaking multi-generational addiction. And since I got sober, 8 of my family members have not gotten sober. And so it's been a pretty incredible journey. But going back to the kids, that's what I'm doing right now. Again, as we talk a year from now, I may have more tools. It may take a little bit of a different direction, but I know based on that statistic of the 21 years old that I'm going to do everything I can to educate and encourage and empower them to stay away from this stuff.
Well, as you learn and continue to implement these things, because what I love is you're thinking about these things, you're being intentional about how can I leverage the experiences that I've had in order to do things better, or at least give my children the best possible chance that they can have. Maybe, a better chance than I had.
Correct.
So as you continue to unpack these things, will you please keep sharing them, because you're ahead of me by about, 9 years.
Yeah.
And this, I ask you this question for myself because this is something that me and my wife are going to have to implement with our son at some point. And we haven't even talked about this, like how, and just sharing that statistic. I think that's so powerful to know that, because what I see from some of the parents who I'm friends with, who have kids in their early teens, their whole philosophy is we are going to let our kids and their friends drink while they're at home, because if they're going to do it, they're going to do it anyways. So we're going to allow it to happen in a controlled environment so that we can at least know they're safe and there doesn't have to be some stigma around it and they don't think that they have to hide it. Like, I'm seeing that a lot from parents that I know, and I think that's been going on for a long time. But then when you hear this statistic that you have a 90% chance if you can make it to the age of 21, it's like, well, maybe we do need to establish some hard boundaries around this, at least while we have control as parents, and not make it easy for them to be exposed to these highly addictive substances, which, by the way, alcohol is, in my opinion, is the worst of all. Alcohol is the worst drug on earth. Is it not unbelievable that alcohol is
it's legal?
Legal? Is it? Does that ever blow your mind when you think about it?
It destroys every organ in your body, man. It is mind blowing, especially with all the research that's been around it and has come out around it now. I cannot believe that it's legal.
I can't either. I mean, when I think about it, it just blows my mind. I'm like, how? Which, when the only conclusion I can come to is it is another testament of the fact that it is the most powerful drug.
Most accessible too.
Yeah, but it's the most accessible in a way because it's the most powerful.
Yeah.
Like, they can't ban. They actually tried to ban it.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
And they can't. Meaning the powers that be, whoever's in charge, the government of making laws around these substances and stuff. Like, it's the fact that it is legal is a testament to how powerful it is, it being the most powerful, I think, in the spectrum.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy to people because they think of drugs like heroin and all, and meth and all. Yeah, all that stuff will kill you and kill you really quick. But like, the fact that alcohol is legal, it just blows my mind. But yeah, the whole parenting strategy, and it sounds appealing, actually. Like, when these parents make their case for allowing their kids to drink when they're at home, maybe they'll collect their keys, and they're providing a safe environment for them to experiment with this drug, alcohol. It's like, it sounds like, oh, that might be a good idea. But when you look at the statistic that you're talking about, it's like, no, we probably shouldn't do that.
Well, I think I think it's important for knowing, if you have the knowledge to mitigate the epidemic that is so widespread in our country and in the world, like, wouldn't you want to do everything that you possibly can to support and help your kids? And I mean, we know neurologically, we know the brain's still developing until 25, especially in males. Maybe it's a little bit younger in females, but it's in their 20s for sure for both. And we do everything that we possibly can to provide this quality of life and nurture and to care for them. And I think that, and I hear what you're saying. I thought I was going to be that dad. I remember when I was younger, I was like, oh, I'm going to be hosting the best parties for my kids. I mean, I'll be buying kids beer at 7-Eleven. I mean, I'll be that cool guy, dude. Like, just like some of them did for me back in the day. And it's just, I have a totally different shift on that and a perspective. And it's the same thing. Like, I think you asked about like social media and different things too, right? About my kids getting
because you have this different understanding of the everything that can come along with that public facing life, like the comments and the anxiety that creates and the comparison that creates, like.
Yeah. And so, and to that again is I'm pretty common sense, you know what I mean? And I'm open to have like dialogue with people. I'm not like matter of fact, like I'm just pretty common sense. I look at the research, I look at, statistics, I look at things that come out and just kind of, evaluate and talk to people that are smarter than me and kind of before I make my conclusion on things like that. But for technology, my kids will not have access to any form of, they have TV and we have a Super Nintendo at our house. And I think that I look at it the way I was raised. I try to bring it up from that. I mean, it's hilarious. We'll play like Mario Kart or Ninja Turtles or something. And I think they'll play for about literally 10 minutes and it's so pixelated. They're like, all right, let's go outside, And so for me is they won't have access to a phone until, and I don't even know if it's going to be a smartphone until they're 16. Because there was a whole new research study that came out on 100,000 adolescents, and I can send it to you. One of my mentors and doctors sent it to me, that it showed that the average age, or the age that kids should be exposed to a cell phone is 16. And so, and we know that, I mean, we just look at around us. It doesn't take, I mean, you just look at the suicide rates, the ages, the depression, the bullying, all the different stuff that's going on to that. And I've had friends who be like, well, they're going to be bullied for not having a phone. I'm like, dude, you know what though? I'll be intentional and address it as it is, but I'm going to make sure that they have enough self-worth and value within themselves to be able to address and handle that. Again, and I'm trying to build up my kids' self-esteem and courage and self-worth at a young age. And it takes work though. But I'll tell you this, it's amazing that I can take, I'm going to go back to just saying 9, even though, because I mean, everybody asked me, and everybody's birthdays are coming up. So that's why I'm like, one's 8, one's 5, one's 4. So 9, 5, and 1, I can take them all to a restaurant and dude, I can sit there and have dinner for an hour and a half with crayons and Play-Doh. It took a lot of work to do that, but it's amazing that I can take my kids to a nice restaurant, go to whatever restaurant we want to go to, and we can actually have a meal and sit there, and they don't have to be on a tablet. And I saw that because I had the first experience of this. And look, I as being obviously 100% honest around this, is outside of the television and stuff like that, our kids have I think they're called Kindles whenever we go on like a plane ride or like a 7-hour car ride, and it's for movies and like educational things. And I'll never forget this I'm talking about a few times a year that they get these things. My 3-year-old Wyatt, who's 5 now, was 3. We gave him this pad on our way to Florida, from Tennessee to Florida, and it was a 6-7 hour drive. And I'll never forget the moment when after that whole car ride, and I took the pad away from him when we got there, his mannerisms. I've never seen something shift so quick in my entire life. And it not only lasted the remainder of the night, it went into the next day. And I go, dude, no way. No way.
So you've seen it firsthand.
I've seen it firsthand. And just the way that he was triggered, the instant gratification, just all the different things that were associated with it. And so we're sticking to that. And again, as you know, do our kids, like I said, our kids have access to TV, so people could argue with me, whatever they want. But again, as I'm going back to, I feel like my generation and, you know, being born in the 80s and 90s, I think, again, as my kids, given any opportunity, would be outside in the pool, riding their bikes, playing baseball, swinging the golf club, on the swing, over sitting and watching TV. And again, it's not like they just have unlimited access to the television, but again, that is their form of technology. And again, it's not YouTube TV. I'm talking about we have cable, and they watch commercials, and you know that we do have Amazon, we do have other, you know, Disney Plus and stuff like that. But that's the access that they have, and I mean, again, as for me, is I feel like that was, and that's based on what my wife and I have agreed on that they can have access to. But when it comes to technology and stuff like that, they're not going to have access to phones, and as it stands right now, until they're 16, and I don't even know if that's a smartphone.
What I'm hearing you say also is that you're not just not providing those forms of entertainment to them, but you are providing opportunity for them to do other things than that. So you're not just taking that away and expecting them just to sit around the house with nothing to do all day. You've moved your family to a place where they can be outside. They have a safe outside environment. You're spending time with them. You made sure you have a swimming pool at your house. So like, I don't know. This is just all good for me to hear, because I've thought a lot about this, and I am going personally as a father. I'm starting this off pretty extreme. Like I have chosen, I won't even post a picture of my son on social media. Maybe that'll change one day as he gets older, but I'm like, man, I want to protect him from this as much as I possibly can for as long as I possibly can.
And I know a lot of people that have done that.
Yeah, it scares me to death, dude. I don't know why,
and it's as we talk about this, it's to each his own. You know what I mean? Like I said, I don't have bias or judgment. You know, I mean, this is what, based on my due diligence, my personal experience, what I've seen, what I've witnessed, what I've, you know, watched, read, whatever it may be. You know, we're doing the best that we can. By no means do we have all the answers, and we're not perfect at this, but you know, we feel confident in the direction that we're going. Again, as our kids, they have their own issues and the things that come up, but you know, we're happy with the direction that things that are going. And I think you bring up another thing is we also want our kids to be bored. We want them to be creative. We want them to be able to, you know, because we noticed that too, as a couple of years ago, it's like we were constantly always going and doing stuff, which is great, and being intentional with our kids and taking the time to do that. But also like it's important for kids to have, like, be creative. And like sometimes, like when we let our kids, it's like we're just sitting down and it's like they do say we're bored, and we're like, okay, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? And then they start drawing, and then they just pull out their Magna tiles, and then they build Legos. They're like, back in the day, it was me and Lincoln Logs and making crash dummies. And
we're the same age, man. So we all the same stuff. Yeah.
You know, but it's I think it's again it's slowing that down. You know what I mean? And again, as they're influenced, I mean, look, you're a product of your environment, but there's, you know, their peers, and there's other kids that aren't, you know, there's only so much we can do. And I think we're surrounded by a good core group of people that are like-minded in the way that we think, but there are some friends that are not. Their kids have tablets, there's other things, but we've made it clear to our kids that, you know, and we let the parents know, like when they come over, like, this is something that we don't allow them to partake in, and we'd appreciate it if we'd respect our boundary with it. So we just communicate, you know what I mean? And people, for the most part, have always respected that. And but dude, like I said, there's no handbook to this. You got to you're building the plane as you're flying it, and we're learning, and you know, we've made a lot of mistakes, and but I'm also really proud of a lot of the decisions that we've made, because our kids are doing good. And I think the other piece too is we've been really intentional with our kids. Love the Lord too already. I mean, we just went to a Forrest Franks concert on Friday of last week, and just to see the relationship that they're developing with God and with Jesus. Like, my daughter's already read the full children's Bible book. And like, I mean, just like, that's another thing that I can say my dad definitely instilled in us, is to develop a relationship with the Lord. And I don't know if I know I said this to you before, and I don't know if I shared this when we were actually taping, but it's like, thank God my dad did that. And there's so many different memories I have from him and my mom still to this day, reading their Bible and different things. I always knew about Jesus, but I got to know Jesus when we moved to Tennessee, and there's a big difference in that. And so I think us filtrating that down into our kids too, and seeing that relationship that they're developing with the Lord is also incredible. And so again, I don't know that had anything to do with everything we were talking about, but it was just important, because at that Forest Frank concert, seeing my 9-year-old and my 5-year-old just worshiping Jesus and stuff was, I mean, that's kind of the ultimate goal.
It's got to be
to have my kids follow the Lord.
How do you top? I mean, yeah. I mean, how do you top that? That's eternity. Like, that's good. That's everything.
It's funny because I asked my mom and dad, just as they're getting older, they're in their 70s and stuff, but I just asked them kind of like, what would be they had like one thing to say to all of us kids, like what would be their last thing. And it's that we have a relationship with the Lord. And so it's crazy just thinking that, hearing them say that. And then again, as we have a long ways to go, but I'm just grateful that it's a part of their life right now.
Yeah. Dude, I couldn't imagine. Hopefully I'll get to experience that one day. I think one of my greatest fears about being a parent is one that my son wouldn't be called by the Lord. Like, he would never get to experience this great faith and hope and forgiveness that I've gotten to experience. Like, I don't, that's, you think about that sometimes when they're really little. And then I think one of my second greatest fears is, which, by the way, I think being a parent is about the scariest thing I've ever done. Yeah. My second greatest fear is raising this little human and realizing that they could reject you when they become adults. Like, good night. Like, and that was, man, when you told the story about about that moment that you had with your dad and what he said to you, like, I know you had not necessarily rejected him as your father. Like, there was still love there, but like, man, the pain he must have been experiencing in that moment, watching his son, who he literally raised from day one. Like, I don't know, man, that
but it
teaches us that we are not in control. We better trust in the Lord as we go through this process, man.
Amen. And what's the scripture? It's like train up a child. I'd have to look it up, but I remember my dad always saying that, and that's, I should know this one. It's like train up a child, and it basically has to do with instilling the Lord and instilling the morals and the values and stuff, and he will not leave. That's something that I'm trying to do. Again, at the end of the day, we are powerless over certain things, and I think the best thing is we can't force anybody but to change, but we can influence change, and it's attraction rather than promotion. And I take what I learned in my spiritual walk with the Lord from AA and incorporate a lot of that into the way I raise my kids.
Yeah, I want to get into just a little bit of I want you to explain to us like your mission focus right now and resources. For people who are listening, who are struggling with addiction, or who know someone that they love, like, what's out there, man, that you've experienced, that you have worked with, or what are you doing now?
Would you guys kill me if I use the head real quick?
Hit it, man.
Are we okay to take a quick
break? Yeah, go
break?
for it. Let's take a break. Howdy, friends. I want to tell you guys about the Covert short from Barbell Apparel. This is a hybrid short. It is my go-to, especially during these summertime months. It's a great pair of shorts to wear out on the range, out on the farm, working.
even doing long hikes or, stuff like that you don't necessarily want to wear a pair of running shorts. You want something with some structure to it, some good pockets. It's just a really well-built short from Barbell Apparel. A lot of features in it, a lot of pockets, a lot of places to put things, and it's light enough and comfortable enough to not sweat your butt off while you're out doing what you're doing out on the range, working, hiking, whatever that activity may be. We've been with Barbell Apparel for a long time. We love them. We love their products. We love their apparel. We use their apparel pretty much primarily when we're out running with their running shorts and apparel, and even just in our everyday life, whatever we're doing, they have got something that fits well, that functions well, and they stand behind their product. So if you guys are needing some new apparel for whatever your walk of life may be or activity that you're doing, check out Barbell Apparel at barbellapparel.com. You won't be disappointed in what you get, and it'll last you a long, long time. So thanks, Barbell Apparel. You guys check them out. Again, barbellapparel.com. Yeah, we're back now. So, yeah, I won't repeat the question. No worries. I totally get it, man. We have a wonderful podcast producer that takes care of all that now.
That's right.
Yeah.
I hear you. We appreciate Court. So thank you very much. But no, I think, look, some of the most valuable resources or things I've learned in these last 20 years, I mean, God, that is a very, again, loaded question.
Yeah, we're hitting it. We have to hit it. Like to break your story down, like we need 4, 5, 6, 7 hours.
Yeah, dude. And there's steps along the way, right? And I think for me, the very beginning, it was simply just being honest. I mean, that was the most important thing, was the honesty. And being willing to take guidance and direction was that first step. And then, obviously, I mean, from the treatment standpoint, after actively arresting the disease, getting stabilized, and then, finding a true life in recovery. I mean, constant. I still see a therapist till today. 12-step meetings are a huge part of it for me. Church, Bible study, scripture are a huge piece of it. And I think, again, as I want to share for anybody that is out there that is going through it, that just feels lost, that feels hopeless, I think by being able to take that first step of just being able to reach out and be able to be open and honest, this could be the last day that you ever have to feel like this. Again, it doesn't mean that life becomes super easy. It takes time and dedication. And I think it's really important. And if you're out there and if you're wondering, am I an alcoholic or am I an addict? It's not my job to tell you that or anybody else's. I think the best way that you can self-evaluate that is whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, work, exercise. It could even be things that maybe look healthy. Is this adding? You can ask yourself this question: is this adding and or subtracting to your life? And have an honest conversation with yourself to really identify that. But being able to reach out and ask for help would be, that first step. And then I think for me today, because again, I know this is very blanketed or umbrellaed statement, but I mean, because there's so many pieces and each person in a different setting, I would probably have to a degree, unless besides the first step of just openness and honesty and willingness and being able to take direction, is where I'm at today. Is I believe that structure and consistency create safety, just like it does for a child. When you see that, I've noticed that, when my 1-year-old is in his routine, he's taking his naps, he's eating when he needs to eat, he's pretty well behaved for the most part. He still has his moments, but when you disrupt that, you try to keep him up longer than he needs to be, you don't feed him when he needs to be, he's absolutely out of control. And so I don't think that we're much different as adults. And I think especially with people with recovery, and I think for somebody that such as yourself with your background, that structure and that consistency can really play in. And so I have non-negotiables that are a part of my life. And just because I have years and years of sobriety now and countless years of being in the program, it doesn't mean I deviate from it. And I think it's the best way My buddy who I brought here, we always laugh about this because we tell people it's like, it's what you put into it, it's what you're going to get out of it. And an analogy towards that, you go to the gym once a week, you're going to get the results of going once a week. If you go 5 times a week, you're going to get the results of that. It's the same thing towards our recovery program. Each day is a new day. It's a daily reprieve in what it is that we do. And so I have that routine that I participate in, and simply just kind of bullet points is in the morning, wake up, I pray, is one of the first things that I do. I read scripture. I do a gratitude list of 3 things I'm grateful for, not only what, but why. The why is the most important. That's where the meat lives. And then I exercise. And that's kind of how I always start my day. And then I close my day, with doing a reflection, not only on the things, that I need to improve upon and that I need to do better, but also the areas that I did well. I think as humans, we always beat up on ourselves. And so I do an inventory of where I can improve, but I also identify the areas that I did well. And that way, when I hit my head to the pillow, it's a fresh day. And then on Tuesdays, we have an AA meeting that I host. I have an accountability call that I have with one other individual once a week. I have a Bible study on Thursday that I participate in and that I started several years ago. And then actually on Monday nights, I have another AA meeting, and Sunday's church. And that's, for me, that's kind of what I've worked in. It looked different last year, it looked different the year before, but that's currently where I'm at. And that structure and that consistency, again, I'm not 100% perfect with this, but I'm pretty damn good at it, because it's a non-negotiable and it's a priority for me. And so it's brought me to the place that I have, the life that I have. But this wasn't me putting this together myself. This is from me taking guidance and direction from other people. So I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did, kind of from a few different areas and angles, because there's at certain times in my recovery journey, certain things were very applicable for what I needed. And I think that is contingent for where certain people are, right? If somebody's sitting there crying in a stage of needing detox versus a guy that's coming out of treatment, they're going to be in 2 different spots.
Yep. I guess that was great. The only question I have on that is that first step that you talked about, that willingness to be open and honest about what is happening and what you're going through. Like, tangibly, what does that look like? Does that look like open and honesty, like with the person you love, or with a
good question,
like a professional, like at a treatment facility? Like, what does that first step tangibly look like? Because I think that's a
great question.
Super important step, obviously.
Correct. And I think for me, it's with somebody that you trust, because again, you're at a place where you're going to look for that person to be a confidant that can help you guide and direct. Again, is for me in this situation, it was in that therapy session, right? Just being able to get open and honest about what was really going on. And so it was having that trusted resource that was there to be able to help support, because I'm obviously in a place that the best of my decision-making keeps getting me back to these same places. And I need to be able to confide in somebody and basically say, hey, look, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm going through. I need support and I need help. Can you be that person that can help walk with me along this? Or can you help me find that person that can? And so it's again, great question. And I think for each person, that's going to be different, whether it may be their wife, it could be their husband, it could be their friend, it could be their uncle, it could be their grandparent. But finding that one person that that you can go to, that you can just be open and honest with, and ask that they be a part of this process to help you. And then, then the certain professionals and certain experts would need to come into play, with what it is that you're dealing with.
Yep. Perfect, man. Now, when you go and speak, what are your main audiences that you like to speak to? Are you telling your story? What does that look like? Because I know that's something. Your website, by the way, is awesome. It's laid out great, and I did see that you are going to speak. And praise the Lord that you're doing that, man.
Yeah, dude.
So for people listening, like, what does that look like?
Right now, it's the places that I'm speaking at has actually been to educators. I've been actually speaking a lot to like school districts. And like the last one I just did was in Kentucky, which was with GREC, which is the Green River Regional Education Cooperative, where they oversee I think 52 school districts, and I think it's 412 schools. And so I was talking to like superintendents, therapists, teachers, other people, and I was sharing my story. And I've done it a couple of different times with groups like that, where I brought in panels, and again, it's kind of hit all areas, where I brought in people that are ASAM certified doctors, which is addiction, especially in medicine. And so, I mean, anybody from that to psychiatrists to, anybody to, like social media experts and people that are navigating with the bullying and different things. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades, just kind of contingent on what those individuals are looking for and what it is that they're needing. And a lot of it when I'm sharing is going to be my own personal truths and experiences of what I've gone through to help normalize the conversation. And then I'll bring in experts to help either bring validity to what it is I'm sharing, or bring it in, or go into further depth on those specific topics that I talked about.
Have you spoke to any men's groups or?
I haven't done any men's groups or anything.
I don't know why. Why have you not?
There's no, and it's funny because there's no particular reason, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there.
But it's interesting that you say that, because I'm in this place. I'm actually going on a sabbatical, if you will, come July. For the last several years, I've always worked for multiple different companies as a 1099, whether I'm a spokesperson for a company, whether I'm running their marketing or being a director of something. I've always kind of done multiple different things. And for the first time, but with very intentional prayer, about 6 months ago, I've been really praying to God to continue to open doors that need to be open and close doors that need to be closed. And for the last several years, the 3 companies that I've been working for, I'll be leaving all of them at the end of this. The last one will be closed at the end of this month. And maybe my point saying that is maybe some of this is going to be a part of that process. I want
you to be able to share your testimony as widely and broadly as you possibly can. And I don't know, man. I see a huge need for a man who's willing to be this honest about their testimony, their story, and their struggles, among all human beings, but especially men today, man. So
yeah,
I just encourage you to lean into that, and I hope that some people listening to this will reach out to you, and
I appreciate that.
And hopefully you guys can set that up and have an opportunity to do that. I would love to get to come and hear you speak, just to hear you lay out your story in the order that you lay it out in and how it flows.
We didn't even get into me being at the first floor at Hoag Hospital while my wife was giving birth to my daughter on the 4th floor. There's a whole nother.
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
There's a whole nother section.
Well, dang it, Jason, you had an hour and a half time limit today.
Me and Marla are gonna have to come back down here, man. This is our therapy. We get an hour. We get 3 hours together there, 3 hours back. Right, Marlo? Yeah, I'm gonna get you lunch after this. Don't worry. We're stopping at the fireworks stand on the way home.
That's awesome, man. No,
that means a lot that you say, because and it's so funny, and I think that's another thing for guys that are in a place of a big part of this sabbatical and slowing down is my life has always been, thank the Lord, it's been so busy and I've had so much opportunity, and I'm so grateful. I'm not complaining about that, man, but I've also not been able to hear the Lord speak to me, and what I mean by that is I've just been so busy, and I want to calm that down. And I think even just by what you're sharing, I take that very seriously, is because I believe the Lord speaks through other people. That's how I've heard a lot of messages that have been brought into me over the course of through my life, probably for the course of it.
Same here, brother.
And so by you saying it's very funny of timing of just how what's presenting themselves and what's working. And that means a lot. And there's no reason I haven't or I shouldn't, take a real hard look at that.
Yeah, that's awesome, brother. We're going to attach all of your, you guys are on YouTube.
Yeah.
I know you and your wife do a show on YouTube. You cover a lot of awesome topics there. We're going to attach that in the description of this episode, along with your Instagram profile and your website and anything else that you want us to add. So you don't have to go through all that while we're live on the air here, man. I want to thank you again for your time today, for your courage today. I understand that sharing your story, and especially the hard parts of your story, even at a high level like we did here today, can be mentally and emotionally exhausting. And so I commend you for showing up and sitting in that chair and allowing me to ask whatever questions I wanted to ask. And for me personally today, just hearing your testimony, especially around the OCD topic, it's just, for me today, it's challenged my perspective on OCD from looking at it as such a, I guess from looking at it, and my wife's going to be thankful that we had this conversation, because I look at it from such a, just like a physical thing. Like, no, like if I can just get you to run 100 miles and like train your mind, like you're going to be able to overcome these thoughts that you're having.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed, man, to be able to have these conversations and to be challenged in these ways on my perspective from somebody who's been through it and understands it. And I just love you, man.
Appreciate you.
Keep going, dude. Keep going, and praise the Lord for your witness and your testimony and for your faith and the family that you're raising. Keep sharing content around that. Yeah. As you and your wife grow through that, I'm going to be paying attention.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, man.
Yep. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Again, everything that you can want to find about Jason and his mission now and what he's doing and continuing to listen and learn and follow him will be in the description of this episode. So shoot him a message and tell him thanks for his time today. Enough said.